Alright, we've got 5 videos to get through, and we're going to try and do them as quickly as possible. 2 of them are going to be a little bit longer, so bear with me. We're going to try and get through all of these all together. Hey everybody, welcome back to Watching Watchmen. Today we're talking about the finale of season number 1. We're episode number 9. This season has only been 9 episodes, but wow, have they had a lot of different subjects to cover, a lot of heavy stuff, a lot of action lately, and just a lot of good stuff throughout the season. I've really enjoyed it. But today we're talking about the finale, the final episode. Now, in this episode, Dr. Manhattan's been captured by the 7th Cavalry. They are going to essentially be experimenting on him or trying to absorb his power in some type of way to use to their own gain. In the meantime, we also find out that Lady Trieu is also trying to get access to Dr. Manhattan and be able to use his abilities. In addition to that, we find out that she's actually his Ozymandias' daughter. So there's this whole storyline where way back in the day when Ozymandias was planning his whole attack on New York or transporting his giant squid monster, Lady Trieu's mom worked for Ozymandias, and she actually broke into his sort of office, stole one of his sort of samples, I guess is the best way to say it, like sort of semen samples that he sort of stashed away, making sure that he wouldn't be able to sort of procreate, but he keeps them for whatever reason. And actually she ends up injecting and inseminating herself so that she eventually has Lady Trieu down the line. She grows up and is of course just as smart as Ozymandias. She comes back and confronts him. He says it's impossible. Of course it is possible. This all happens before him going to Europa, and that's actually how he gets off of Europa, is actually with Lady Trieu's help. It turns out that when he was trying to escape his sort of prison, that whole season that we've been going through, when he was able to get out of it and all the bodies he was piling up, actually read not only just "save me," but "save me, daughter," which was a message to Lady Trieu, who had a satellite orbiting that area trying to look for Dr. Manhattan. So it's all very interconnected. We didn't know it at the time, but all the pieces are fitting together. Now, of course, things don't always go to plan. So with the combination of the 7th Cavalry trying to take Dr. Manhattan's powers, Lady Trieu trying to take Dr. Manhattan's powers, meanwhile, Sister Night is trying to save her, or save him rather, from essentially being destroyed, because obviously she loves John, aka Cal. So there's a lot of different factors at play, obviously all revolving around Dr. Manhattan, which was a big reveal just a few episodes ago. Now everything starts to come to a head as all of these different storylines start to get twisted and really bound up in a nice little bow to wrap everything up. So when the 7th Cavalry are trying to essentially kill Dr. Manhattan, Lady Trieu is coming after the 7th Cavalry, who's captured Dr. Manhattan, which is her goal. So all these factors are coming into play, along with Sister Night trying to save her love. So the way they tried to play with it was actually really interesting. The way everything tied together was actually very well written. I like that a lot. It wasn't like there were a ton of loose ends. I was worried about Looking Glass, but thankfully he does show up, sort of disguised as a 7th Cavalry member, in order to get access and try and help out the good guys, Silk Spectre or Laurie, the FBI agent, as well as Sister Night, to save Dr. Manhattan, or at least try and stop the 7th Cavalry from whatever the hell it is that they're trying to do. So their plans get exposed, and Lady Trieu ends up killing them, the 7th Cavalry, after they mistakenly miscalculate how to take the powers from Dr. Manhattan, essentially killing the senator who was leading them secretly. So he dies, and the 7th Cavalry essentially is eliminated, and Lady Trieu gets her shot at taking Dr. Manhattan's powers. Now, she does succeed at taking away his powers and being able to essentially kill him, but where they fail is before he actually gets his powers fully taken away, he transports Laurie, Ozymandias, and Looking Glass back to his, or Ozymandias' rather, Antarctic sort of home, where he sort of hides out and spends most of his time in his life. So he transports him back there. Ozymandias decides to come up with this plan. Let's use the baby squids that sort of just drop wherever, that I've kind of calculated randomly to rain to keep this sort of public fear alive. Let's use that. We're going to freeze them, and we're going to drop them over Tulsa. So they go ahead and follow through that plan. Of course, Sister Night stays with John because she loves him, and he doesn't want to die alone. I thought that was a pretty decent storyline, even though he is sort of heartless in a lot of ways and very cold and calculated. He still wants to be loved. He still wants to have a human connection. So that's where he keeps Sister Night there. So essentially, Ozymandias freezes all of the squids, rains them down on Tulsa like a Gatling gun, as he says, and kills Lady True, destroys the machines, and a bunch of other people within like a 5-mile radius or 5-block radius, something like that. But luckily, everybody that Sister Night cares about, her kids and her grandfather, are all safe. Now, the big ending of this whole episode, I pretty much told you the entire episode. I thought it was a great season. Episode was great. I think it could have been a little bit more amped up, but the way that they tried to add everything in, if they would have had a couple more episodes just of more build-up or kind of tie the storylines in slowly, I think it would have been a little bit better rather than just tossing it all in one 1-hour episode. But the way that the whole series ends, I think, is the most important part of it, because not only does Dr. Manhattan die, but previously in a few episodes ago, him and Sister Night had a conversation that he could essentially, possibly, in theory, transfer all of his powers into an egg. And so after Sister Night gets home, she's cleaning up and finds one solid egg left in a carton that she had broken previously. So she thinks, okay, let's try and see what could happen here. So she goes outside to the pool, slams the egg down, not slams it, but like cracks it and eats it, and then she starts to put her foot onto water. And that's where it cuts to black, and season 1 is essentially over, leaving us on the cliffhanger that we don't know if Dr. Manhattan's powers are now going to be transferred in a way to Sister Night. We're going to have to wait to see if that even storyline is going to be portrayed in a second season. There hasn't been a green lit for a season 2 yet. Obviously, I think they hands down deserve it, but I hope we can explore this further. I think it would be interesting to see the powers of Dr. Manhattan in a woman. I think it would be interesting to see how her sort of superhero persona maybe translates to that now, if it does work that she gets his powers. There's a lot of different factors at play here that they could really work with. They have an open world that they can really deal with here, where she could possibly be the most badass thing ever. And Dr. Manhattan, I think, because he was previously like a watchmaker, he was just sort of an ordinary guy who was just, yeah, he was smart, but he didn't really have a lot of worldview, I guess, in a way. And so once he became Dr. Manhattan, he sort of, again, was kind of cold and calculated. Now, transferring that over to Sister Night with that possibility, it could lead to a lot of interesting things. What her ability and her impact on the world could be a lot heavier than Dr. Manhattan. And of course, this is all storylines that haven't been explored in comics, or any type of literature other than just the writer's minds and how they're going to put it on page so that these actors can portray it. So they're completely free to do whatever they want at this point. And I'm really excited. I really hope season 2 picks up where this one left off. And HBO did a really good job. I highly recommend watching Watchmen, or Watchmen's my show. I highly recommend that. But I highly recommend watching the show, HBO's Watchmen. Definitely a great show to watch. Even if you're not a fan of Watchmen or really have a lot of knowledge of the franchise, whether it be the Zack Snyder movie or the comic book, it's worth a watch, because you'll get sort of nods here and there and things that are happening that maybe will sort of spark your interest into going back to that material, which is still definitely worth checking out, especially the comic, as it's going to have a lot more references there. But there is some, that Zack Snyder visual version that you get a lot more stuff that you can kind of sort of digest if you're not a big reader or comic book fan. Point is, I highly recommend the show. Episode was great. I wish it was a little bit longer, but the show was just so good that maybe it just had to end a little bit sooner for us to be wanting more. But again, I highly recommend checking it out. You can watch all of my reviews on every single episode of Watchmen in my series Watching Watchmen, now available on my channel. I've got about 4 other videos that I have to shoot right now, back to back to back to back to back. So I'm going to get started on those. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.